original Marquis Jin Yuan's mansion. The Tiannan Province's central governor, Zhang Zishu, worked here most of the time, not in the Tiannan governor's office. How magnificent was the Jin Yuan Marquis's residence! How high and mighty was it! He currently had 30,000 troops, and most of them were Zheng Tuo's troops. Zhang Zishu had been a scholar for more than 10 years. He was truly a carefree, elegant, and beautiful man. What should he say about this person? He was talented in both literature and politics. But he was extremely conceited. They were the kind of people who looked down on the world because of their talent. In his eyes, there were only two people among the ministers of Yu State that he took seriously. One was Zhu Rong, half Bian Shao and half Zhong Yao. In his eyes, the remaining people were all useless. In his eyes, Zhang Ji was capable but lacked political insight. In his eyes, Shen Lang was a cunning person, but he had no talent and no political insight. He had always believed that Zhu Rong would become the leader of Yu's civil officials after Zhu Rong passed away. After Zhu Rong was removed from his position, it would be Zhang Zishu's turn. Don't worry, Queen Arunana is a straightforward person. She won't really turn hostile, nor will she really send troops to attack the border of Vietnam. Zhang Zishu said, "This woman is so honest that she's almost stupid. She can't attack you country, and she can't blame her chieftains either. She'll only be in a terrible fix." The governor of the central governor's office of Tiannan Province said, "Sir, you are wise. Then why did we gather 30,000 troops at the border and act as if we are on guard against the Yue Kingdom?" Zhang Zishu said, "It's better to be safe than sorry. The army needs enemies. They need to have a string in their minds at all times. Otherwise, they will become a pile of loose sand. It's really funny to say that it's because Arunana is honest and close to you country that I'm so aggressive. If she was as vicious and domineering as the previous 2 generations of Chong kings, we would have tried to curry favor with her. How could we dare to be so cold and arrogant? As the saying goes, the kind will be bullied, the Long historian said. This is politics." Zhang Zishu laughed. "As long as someone takes a step back, there will be someone who will press on. Besides, did I do anything wrong? With the kingdom war before us, shouldn't I be guarding the borders?" "Of course you should. No one in the world can point out your excellency's mistakes," the guardian said with a smile. But he knew clearly in his heart that the central governor Zhang Zishu was only taking the opportunity to take control of the military. Just as he said, any army needed an enemy in their heart, or their heart would be scattered. Even if there were no enemies, he had to create one. In this way, the army of Tiannan Province would be gathered under the command of one person. Zhang Zishu's move was very successful. The army in the southern part of Tiannan Province originally had no enemies. Whether it was the army of Chu State or Jin Jun's army, they were both very far away from them. Zhang Zishu's new official had just arrived, and these military leaders were somewhat rebellious and unwilling to obey, so it was difficult for Zhang Zishu to hold the military power in his hands. Therefore, he created an imaginary enemy, even if the imaginary enemy was his ally, Chong country. Under the effect of this imaginary enemy, the relationship between the two countries became more and more tense. The army of Yu country, due to fear and confusion, gradually gathered under Zhang Zishu's command. In half a year's time, he had basically taken control of these 30,000 troops. Zhang Zishu knew that he was taking a risk. It could be considered as strategic blackmail, or even bullying the honest Arunana. However, when he was outside, he would not listen to the orders of the sovereign. Back then, Shen Lang was much crazier and more adventurous than him. Moreover, Zhang Zishu had not disobeyed the emperor's decree at all. All the official documents and memorials had talked about the friendship between Vietnam and Chong country. He had even taken the initiative to visit the king's city twice and sent gifts to Arunana. Zhang Zishu was very proud of this move of his. The more he did this position of the central governor of Tiannan Province, the more he felt good about it. Ulterior motives, unfathomable motives. Ning Yuanxian was furious after receiving the secret report from the Blackwater Tower. Zhang Zishu, you're good. I'm trying my best to maintain my friendship with the Queen of Chong country, but you're trying your best to destroy my friendship. You're really bullying the Queen's honesty. After his anger subsided, Ning Yuanxian calmed down. What could he do? Order Zhang Zishu to withdraw the border defense line? Or could he directly dismiss Zhang Zishu? It was impossible. The position of governor in Tiannan Province could only be held by the crown prince's side. It was the same for anyone else, as the queen of Chang country was Shen Lang's absolute ally, which meant that she was the enemy of the crown prince. Besides, Zhang Zishu was dancing on a tightrope, but he never crossed Aranana's bottom line. He wouldn't really force her to the enemy's side. For example, when the Chang cavalry charged at the border this time, he had ordered the army to hide and not come out. He did not escalate the conflict and even acted like he was bearing the humiliation. This person was just too smart, bullying an honest man. However, with the enemy and the country war in front of them, Zhang Zishu, aren't you afraid of playing with fire? Ning Yuanxian drew a big cross for Zhang Zishu in his heart. Last time, he was involved in the case of military grain corruption, so Ning Yuanxian felt that he could still be used. But this time, Zhang Zishu's actions had disappointed him. But soon, Ning Yuanxian sighed again. If they won this war, the crown prince's position would be as stable as a mountain, and Zhang Zishu would not need Ning Yuanxian's promotion. If the crown prince was defeated, Zhang Zishu's future as the crown prince's direct descendant would be over. It would not matter whether Ning Yuanxian crossed out his name or not. They were all smart people, all smart people. He was just too smart. Issue an imperial decree to reprimand Zhang Zishu. Don't have any specific charges. Just reprimand him directly. Take back the plaque of Zhang Zishu's family. That's the plaque given by the late king. The queen of Chang Kingdom, Arunana, looked at the group of sand primitive warriors in front of her. His heart ached like a knife was being twisted. 2,000 warriors knelt in front of her. Your Majesty, you're like the moon in the sky. It's our lifelong honor to be able to serve you. But now we, the Sand Primitive Tribe, have our own son, and our son, our king, needs us. We, the Sand Primitive people, have our own country now. The Great Southern Kingdom needs us, and our motherland needs us. So, please forgive us. We can no longer be loyal to you. These people were all warriors of the Sand Primitive Tribe, mercenaries who had once pledged loyalty to Arunana. After she ascended the throne, 8,000 mercenaries came to pledge their loyalty to her one after another, most of whom were Sand Primitive warriors. If you feel angry, you can kill us or order us to commit suicide. As long as you give the order, we will definitely not live in vain. One of the Sand Primitive warriors held a scimitar to his neck. As long as Arunana gave the order, he would slit his own throat without hesitation. Arunana let out a long breath. Go Ingluo. Thank you, Your Majesty. The 2,000 warriors of the Sand Primitive Tribe stood up and took off all their armor, scimitars, and bows. Then they left naked. Without taking anything with him, he returned to the Sand Primitive Tribe naked to pledge his allegiance to Jin Jun. They would rather give up everything and have nothing to rely on Jin Jun. From this, one could see how important Jin Jun was in the hearts of the Sand Primitive warriors. I'm sorry, Queen, Yang said. I can't stop them. I can't stop them. Some things will eventually happen. The Queen shook her head. Nirvana Island. Shen Lang looked at the 3,800 Nirvana warriors and was extremely excited. In the Battle of Ajinkal, the 5,000 United Kingdom longbow soldiers had defeated 30,000 France soldiers, killing over 10,000 enemies, and only 200 of them had died. However, compared to the Nirvana army in front of them, the United Kingdom longbow soldiers were far inferior. Be it willpower, combat power, or even the bow and arrows they were equipped with, they were far inferior. How stunning would this Nirvana army be on the battlefield? Shen Lang could not imagine it. However, the equipment of the second Nirvana army was still not enough. First of all, the defense was too weak. Change your clothes. Shen Lang ordered. Truckloads of new equipment were pushed out. After opening it, a new type of armor. Of course, these armors could not be compared to the first Nirvana armies as they only weighed 40 jin. However, it was forged from the best steel. Although it was light and thin, it was far stronger than ordinary iron armor. It might be difficult to defend against the enemy's blades and spears, but it should be able to defend against the enemy's arrows. Furthermore, the manufacturing process of this set of armor was extremely difficult. Because this was a mountain army, they had to climb cliffs, mountains, and pass through jungles. Thus, the armor had to be flexible and light. The design had to be ergonomic. For this reason, the entire armor had to use a large number of chain mail and even leather armor. In addition, the weather in the South Phoenix Nation was sweltering, so there were many openings in the helmet. After putting on the brand new armor, the Second Nirvana Army's formation changed. He looked particularly valiant and vigorous. Change to the bow. Although the Second Nirvana Army had enough strength and endurance, the normal two-stone bow was still too strong. Even the Second Nirvana Army could only shoot 50 arrows in a row. If he needed to aim, it would consume even more energy. With an order, the Second Nirvana Army changed into a brand new composite bow, which was made with modern technology. This was a completely revolutionary breakthrough in archery. Composite bows were used in all the archery competitions in the Olympic Games. Everyone could not help but be stunned. The bow looked complicated and exquisite, but it wasn't very powerful. It was indeed so. The recurve bow looked truly domineering. But he pulled the bowstring. The brothers of the Second Nirvana Army immediately felt the difference. It's actually so effortless? Especially after the bow was fully drawn, the strength required was completely reduced to the minimum. This was more conducive to aiming and stabilizing the bow. Start the test. The Second Nirvana Army began to test fire. Amazing, amazing, amazing. This new bow was simply too good. Not only did the power not weaken, it became even stronger. Because it saved energy, the firing speed was faster and the accuracy was higher. With this new type of bow and arrow, on the battlefield, he would definitely be able to make the enemy wail like ghosts and howl like wolves. Grandmaster Dao Lan ordered. Long-range coverage. 3,800 soldiers of the Second Nirvana Army knocked their arrows and pointed them at the sky. He aimed at the forest 250 meters away. Letting Luo go. With that order, the arrows fell like rain. Once again, a storm of AoE attacks. This crazy shooting lasted for another 3 minutes. Another 100,000 arrows were shot out. Instantly, the small forest 200 meters away was destroyed. It was as if he had been ravaged by a wild beast. Shen Lang, Mulan, and Master Lan Dao entered the forest to check. The power of this bow and arrow was indeed powerful. Even at such a long distance, it was still lethal. The dense arrows were nailed to the tree trunk and the ground. Some of the thinner branches were even broken. However, at this distance, aiming was entirely up to the will of the heavens. It could only be a long-range area of effect attack. It was impossible to kill him precisely. However, this was already a subversive breakthrough. The effective killing distance of any archer army in the world generally did not exceed 100 steps. Shooting arrows beyond this distance would be considered a waste. On the other hand, Shen Lang's Second Nirvana Army could kill the enemies from at least 200 meters away. This was a huge advantage. Withdraw your arrows. Master Dao Lan gave the order. The 3,800 Nirvana warriors entered the forest and retrieved their arrows. The arrowheads of these arrows were made of the best steel. Of course, it would be too slow if he relied on the blacksmiths. The current smelting workshop on Jinshan Island had already used a more primitive assembly line operation. For example, for each arrow, the hot molten steel was poured into the arrow mold, cooled down, and then disassembled. Then, a large number of original arrowheads were sent to the polishing room for polishing. Furthermore, the grinding of the arrowheads was no longer a matter of human strength. It was the water wheel's rotation of the gears and the grinding stone. No matter how bad it was still a grindstone that was stepped on with one's feet. He had made arrows more than half a year in advance, and now he had made an astronomical number of arrows. These arrowheads were probably made of high-quality steel, so their hardness, toughness, and sharpness far exceeded that of ordinary arrows. They had no problem breaking armor. However, after the Nirvana Army retrieved each arrow, they would check it carefully. If there was a problem with the arrow, they would trim it or even replace it. If there was a problem with the arrow, They would use the whetstone to polish it again bit by bit to ensure that the arrowhead was kept in its sharpest state. Great Grandmaster, who do you think is the most suitable to be the leader of the Second Nirvana Army? Shen Lang asked. Grandmaster Lan Dao pointed at Mulan. I originally thought that no one was worthy of being the leader of this Nirvana Army. He is a powerful commander, but he is not a sharpshooter. But after meeting Mulan, Grandmaster Lan Dao said, I feel like this army is specially made for her. Shen Lang was stunned. Mulan was not a sharpshooter. Of course, Mulan's shooting skills were not bad, but she was best at horse battles. Bao, the strongest Bao. A moment later, someone delivered a super strong Bao. It was an iron Bao, and also a composite Bao. It was actually 1.6 meters tall. Moreover, the arm of the Bao was extremely thick, and the bowstring was also unprecedentedly thick. This Bao is already over 3 pickles, and the arrows need to be specially made. Someone handed over a quiver of arrows. This arrow was indeed extraordinary. It was more than 1.2 meters long and twice as heavy as an ordinary arrow. The wind was getting stronger. Mulan picked up the super strong Bao. Instantly, Shen Lang was burned and turned into stone. This position was too beautiful. It was too sexy. It was simply better than those game posters. Mulan easily drew the 3 pickle super strong Bao. He barely aimed. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly he shot an arrow. The arrow was as fast as a shooting star, almost as fast as a bullet. It easily broke a branch 260 meters away. Coincidence? An accident? Following that, Mulan shot out the 2nd arrow, the 3rd arrow, and the 4th arrow. Almost every arrow hit a tree branch. Too strong. This was the true 100% accuracy. At such a distance, he was comparable to a sniper. The key was that Mulan did not aim at all. Was he this strong after the transformation of his bloodline? Mulan's awakened ability was a kind of perception, a perception of nature. In terms of combat power, this kind of perception was first the sense of danger, followed by archery. She really didn't need to aim. Top-tier archery was a gift given after the transformation of the bloodline. She was the real top sharpshooter. Baby, the Second Nirvana Army belongs to you from now on. Shen Lang looked at Mulan and said. The next day, Shen Lang led the Second Nirvana Army and boarded dozens of ships. They left Nirvana Island and returned to Xuanwu City. It had already been 7 days since the war in the South Phoenix Nation broke out. The entire Yue country once again fell into a state of anxiety. How was the battle going? Did he win or lose? There was no news for 7 whole days. However, rumors were already flying everywhere. Have you heard? In the war of the South Phoenix Nation, we lost. General Zhu Lin has died in battle. General Nangong Ao has surrendered. Princess Ning Luo has been captured. I heard that not only was Princess Ning Luo captured, but she was also thrown into the 10,000 Snakes cave and was bitten to death by poisonous snakes. Our Yue State's army died miserably. There are mountains of corpses and seas of blood. The entire ground is covered with corpses. Of course, this was only one of the rumors. There was also the rumor of the victory of Yue State. What did he mean by Jin Jun has surrendered, Jin Jun has been killed, Jin Jun has been captured, and is being escorted to the capital? However, the rumor of Yue country's defeat was the most widespread and also the most realistic. Of course, Chu State spies had contributed to this, but in the end, it was still due to the fear and resentment in the hearts of the people of Yue State. The entire Yue country was under curfew. In fact, without the permission of the government, any gathering of more than 30 people was illegal. Because once there were many people, it would naturally become the hotbed of rumors. But even with such strong suppression, it could not stop the spread of rumors. And it was getting more and more intense. The entire Yue country was in a state of panic. This was especially true for Tiannan Province, which was close to the Nan-Oyu nation. There were even some people who began to pack their bags, ready to escape at any time. As for the powerful nobles, they had already begun to close their doors and ordered all the armed servants to be on guard day and night. At this moment, the most anxious person was definitely the governor of Tiannan Province, Zhu Rong. 9 days had passed. He had already received over 100 battle reports. But the content was almost the same. Jin Jun's army was extremely crazy and did not fear death. Although they lacked large-scale construction equipment, they were extremely brave and brutal, just like wild beasts. They were like moths to a flame. Governor Zhu Rong's heart palpitated with fear every time he received a battle report, even though the content of almost every battle report was the same. However, he could tell that the situation was getting more and more dangerous and shocking, because every 2 hours or so, there would be a new battle report from the battlefield of the South Phoenix Nation. Therefore, Governor General Zhu Rong almost didn't need to sleep. Even napping was a luxury. "My lord, you should go to sleep. I'll wake you up if something big happens." Yan Wuji couldn't help but ask. "No, I can't sleep. I'll be a sinner if I miss the opportunity," Governor Zhu Rong said. Yan Wuji said, "Governor, you're too tense. This is very disadvantageous to the battle. Don't you realize that the atmosphere in the governor's mansion is so oppressive that it's hard to breathe? The people of the entire southern Heaven City are already in a state of panic. All the battle reports have to go through your hands first, and the servants will judge the battle situation from your expression. Your face is too depressed and serious, and the servants will feel that the battle situation is definitely not good. When they go out, they will inevitably mention it to their families. The rumors will be magnified again and again, and it will turn into a rumor of defeat before they even reach the capital. As the commander-in-chief, you need to be calm, relaxed, and confident. This way, the morale of the troops will be high. Don't you know that many people in the southern Heaven City have already packed up their belongings and are preparing to escape?" Governor General Zhu Rong was stunned. He then bowed deeply and said, "Thank you for your warning, sir. It's my fault. I was too concerned. Governor, go to sleep. Tomorrow, you must appear on the city wall in high spirits. You must appear in the midst of the army and destroy the rumors of defeat." Yan Wuji said, "All right, we'll do as you say." Governor General Zhu Rong nodded. Then, he took a deep breath and went back to his room to sleep. But how could Yingying sleep with her heart so anxious? Seeing this, Yan Wuji lit an incense stick. After a while, Governor General Zhu Rong finally fell asleep. However, Governor General Zhu Rong had only slept for 2 hours before he was immediately woken up. He almost sat up abruptly and said in horror, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" General Zhu Lin's latest report: the western city wall of the capital city of the southern Ou nation has fallen. Jin Jun's army has climbed up the city wall. Yan Wuji said. Zhu Rong trembled violently, his scalp almost splitting open. The quantitative change on the battlefield had finally led to a qualitative change. The bad news had finally
Hey guys,
arrived.
if you're enjoying the content, make sure to subscribe to the channel for regular updates. Your support really helps us grow.